So in this video, I am going to show you how to make a bronze patina effect on a sculpture using just paint and varnish. So here I have a sculpture. I didn't make this sculpture, this is just one that I bought, and it had some colors already on it, but for this demonstration, I want to start with black as the undercoat, because when you make bronze, you want to create a weathered effect. So you want to make it look like at the bottom layer of all of your colors is the darkest, which would be black, and it would look like the bronze had been outside for a long time. It had got kind of dirty and weathered. So you start with the darkest color underneath the base coat. So I painted this sculpture black first. So you can see it's all just plain black. And to do this, I used this paint, Citadel Color. It doesn't really matter which color black that you used. It doesn't really matter too much whether you use base or layer. I just chose Corvus Black because it happened to be in my paint set, and it was the nearest one that I found when I was looking through my paint set. So Citadel Color Black, painted the whole sculpture already with black. So the next stage is to add some bronze color. Now to do that, I use Tamiya X33, which is bronze with metallic highlight. So you can see there at the bottom, it is metallic. Give it a good shake, like this. And you can see the paint does not look bronze at first. So what you have to do is take some paper towels on this, and you want to use a broad brush. I use a acrylic Daler-Rowney brush. You can use anything. It doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, you should probably use a cheap brush for this, because when you do lots of patina work, eventually the brush does get ruined. So dip your brush in and sort of, you want to find the metallic parts. So if you don't see any metallic parts when you brush some of the paint onto your paper towel, you need to do a bit more. If you still don't find any, like in this case, it means the paint needs to be more mixed. So give it more a shake. See if there's any more, and if you really can't see any, and you want to get in there with something smaller and mix it up from the bottom, because it does settle at the bottom. There you go. Now you can see some of the metallic colors at the bottom there. Right, okay, good. Keep your brushes in a glass of water when you're not using them so they don't get ruined. These Tamiya paints dry very quickly and they're very sticky once they do. So, right, so now when you brush it onto here, you should start to see some metallic highlights coming out. They're not immediately visible, but they will be as you work with it. So you don't want to put the full paint onto the sculpture, it's too thick. So you want to get it nice and thin, almost like there's no paint left on the brush, like this, okay? And then start to just lightly brush over the higher parts of the sculpture. So the parts that are sticking out, you want to brush over with your brush, okay? Now this can take a while. It's not the easiest process because of the way that the paint can come out kind of randomly. But you should start to see, if I just go over it nice and roughly like this, you should start to see a difference between the side that I'm brushing over with the bronze and the left side. I'm just doing it very roughly. I don't know if you can see that yet, but you will start to see metallic highlights appearing. Now, in this case, I've noticed that it looks like my paint has been sat down inside of the box for a very long time, so it's not really, it's too settled. It needs to be mixed up a little bit. So I'm going to take another brush and actually pull some of the paint from the bottom of the container, and I'm going to actually paint it onto the brush here like this. Right, now we should get a much more dramatic effect. There we go. Right, you're starting to see it now. So you just want to do it very, very roughly, because you're trying to create the effect here that all the raised parts of the sculpture have been worn away, they've been touched, they've been brushed by people like it was a statue. When people touch a statue, they wear away parts of the patina, and you want to create that effect. Now you can use a small brush like this as well. It takes a bit longer, but so if you use a small brush like this, you can kind of be a bit more precise in where you do it. It doesn't take too long, and also if you do it too thickly, then the Tamiya paint will be sticky for a long time. So you don't want to do it too thickly. You want to make sure that it's quite thin and it can dry fast. So you can see here on the scales, there you go, look, you can see quite quickly that the bronze color comes out on the scales. But make sure you don't go into the little depressions and the little lines, because you want those to stay black. You want those to look like they've been weathered and they've been collecting dirt and dust, just like a real statue. You only want to brush onto the higher points of the statue, the points that are sticking out the most. Those are the ones that would be worn away, and they would be showing the most bronze color in reality. So you want that effect. You can see some of it here. Compared to the black at the legs, you can see that where the bronze is, it's now quite shiny on the raised areas, the top of the scales, and not the depressions in between. Okay, so now you can just compare from the side there, black, no bronze, bronze effect. So you see how shiny and metallic this part is, and the unpainted part isn't. I will just quickly go over the rest of it. It shouldn't take too long. You can see the technique is just to be very, very broad with it. Don't go into the depressions with the brush. Just let the brush touch the raised areas, the parts that are sticking out. You only want those parts to be shiny. You want there to be some black as well in the depressions, in the spaces in between. Right. So you just do this. It doesn't take long. It's a very quick process. It's actually very fun. Once you've constructed a sculpture, you've done all the hard work of building it. This is my favorite part, is to add patina effects if I'm making one that's supposed to be a bronze sculpture. This is my favorite part because it's so much fun. It's very simple and very quick, but it comes up with a really nice effect very quick. You see, it's starting to look metallic now. It's starting to look like actual metal. Okay, so make sure that you always drain your brush of any excess paint. You don't want it to be too sticky or too thick. Tamiya paint dries very quick because it has solvents in it. So be careful. Always use this paint in a well ventilated area. So with a window open, something like that. Don't use it in a small space with no ventilation. But the advantage of Tamiya paints like these is that they dry very, very quickly. So you should be able to see now. Just if I quickly do this part, you should be able to see the eye come up nice and shiny. What am I doing now? Okay. There we go, and the horns as well. We can go over these again with the second pass later. So now you can see that it's starting to look more metallic. Now you just have to do the body. Should be quite a quick job. You don't want to spend too much time on it. Always wipe off the excess and just quickly go over all the raised areas like this. Toes, claws, feet, scales. You want to use the bronze to emphasize the relief parts of the sculpture, the raised parts of the sculpture. You don't want them to go into the little crevices and the cracks. You just want them to show up the parts that stick out. You see? Okay. It's a really quick job. After this is done, there's only a couple more steps before you'll have a finished sculpture that looks like bronze. Okay, so let's go over that. There you go. A bit more. Already the head is dry, so this is how quickly, to me, a paint dries. So be aware of that. It dries very, very quick. It's touch dry within probably about 30 seconds if it's thin enough. Okay, so this is the first pass. Okay, second pass. Let's go over the ones, the areas that are the most prominent. So the parts of the sculpture that stick out absolutely the most. You want to go over those just one more time. So I would say the nose, the chin, whiskers here, cheeks, these stick out the most. Eyes, eyebrow, this little decoration on his head, and ears, of course. Ears need to be done, and the horns. There we go, and maybe the chest, a stripe down the middle of each leg, the part that sticks out the most. And the claws, I would say the claws. Let's go over those a few times. And the tail, maybe a little bit on the back of the head as well. So a little bit here, just on the hair, the mane, and of course the tail, and the back. Okay, so there we go. That's pretty much all of the bronzing I'm going to do with this paint. So we can put this paint away now. Right, and this brush you'll need to clean it, maybe with a paint cleaner, because it is a acrylic paint. Okay, so now you just allow this part to dry for, I would say, 30 minutes at least. Okay, so this has had time to dry, about 30 minutes, or you can use a heat gun. Sometimes I use a heat gun. Now we go to the next stage. So for this, I'm going to put the sculpture on top of some plastic to prevent it sticking to anything. I don't want it to stick to the desk, because I'm going to use some varnish. So Tamiya acrylic paint X22, which is a clear acrylic varnish, because you want to create the effect of an extremely smooth and shiny surface on the sculpture. So I'm going to use a flat acrylic brush for this and just show you briefly what you do at this stage. So you don't want the varnish to be too thick because, again, it doesn't dry very well, but you want to go over everything that you've done with a thin layer of this varnish, and it will create a very shiny metallic-y look when we get to the end of this project. Now, because this is an acrylic solvent-based varnish, you notice some of the bronze color is coming off on the brush, you see? Don't worry about that. You will need to, of course, wash the brush afterwards, but that's normal. It will take a little bit of the bronze color away as you do it. That's why you don't want to overdo each part. Just quickly go over as sort of one pass over each area so that you can see that it is shiny, but don't belabor it. Don't keep going over the same piece. Just go over it once and call it a day for each part. So you can see that I'm just quickly going over everything with very quick broad stroke, not too thick, and wiping off the varnish as I do each part so there's no excess varnish on the brush. Now, one thing to remember about this varnish is that if you touch it again, if I paint this part and then come back to it like 30 seconds, 60 seconds later, it's going to be very sticky and tacky and it's going to peel off again. So you have to not go over the parts you've just done. So if you've done it, you have to wait. If you want to go over it again, you have to wait until it's dry. Otherwise, you're going to peel off everything you've done. It's going to look bad. So as you can see, this part is now very shiny. And I'm going to just wait so that when this is dry, I can pick it up by the head and then I can paint the lower part of the body. Fast forward, now you can see it's all done, how shiny it is. The body's nice and it looks very wet, but it's just the varnish. When the varnish actually dries, it will retain a lot of that shininess, and that's what we want. So you can see, I'll just show you the whole body. It's all very shiny and glossy, and that's what we want. We want that effect before we go to the next part. Okay, so he has had 24 hours to dry, and I even gave him another coat of clear X22 varnish. So now you can see he's very shiny, very metallic looking. And just for reference, you can see I didn't paint underneath so that you can see the difference between the matte finish of the normal black and the gloss finish of the metallic bronze and the varnish. So you can see he looks quite metallic now, right? So now we're going to add the patina effect. Now, bronze, when it is exposed to the elements, has a greenish patina. It's kind of like turquoise green color. So this is like one of the closest colors you will get to it. It looks like this, perhaps a little bit paler than this, more like this whitish green on the inside here. So when you use this to make the patina, it's advisable to mix it with a little bit of white paint so that it's more pale than this. That's not quite so green, but that you can see that it's a greenish color. So I will use this acrylic green color, and I will show you how you go about making the patina effect on the sculpture. So I use a little shot glass like this, and I've put some paint into it. Now, I'm not going to do the mixing right now, but I just want to show you how you go about applying the patina, because this is time sensitive. You need to be very quick with the method that I'm going to do, and you'll get better with practice. The first time you might mess it up a little bit and have to wipe it away and do it again. That's okay, that's fine. So what you do is you will take some of the paint, a very small amount, and you'll start to paint it into the grooves of the sculpture, the parts that don't stick out, the parts that we were not trying to make metallic looking. And then as soon as it goes in there, you want to wipe it away with a wet cloth, so that the only part that is left is like a small amount that's just in the grooves of the sculpture. So I use one of these cloths because it's nice and soft, and it seems to work very well when I do this. So you get some water, like I have a glass of water here, and you just dip your cloth in, but you don't want it to be too wet, so you want to squeeze it out, and then only use the damp part. Don't use the super wet part, just use the damp part of the cloth on the edge. So you want to kind of mix it up a little bit so that it's like damp but not soaking wet. You want it to be damp. So I'll use like this part of the cloth here, right? So then you take your paint, and you only need a very small amount. So use a small brush like this, a micro brush, and a very small amount of the paint, just a little bit. Show you what I mean. So here's the mouth. So you just paint into the groove of the mouth there, like that, just very quickly. And then, as soon as you've done it, wipe away the excess with your damp cloth, right, like this. Now you can see all that's left is the parts where it's in the deep grooves. So on the smooth parts, the parts that are exposed, you don't get any of the patina. This is what a normal sculpture outside would be like, because the rain and the wind and people touching it would wear away the patina on these parts. All that would be left would be patina in the deep grooves of the sculpture. So you need to do this in all of the little grooves of your sculpture. So that includes any details like the nose. So here's the nose. Paint some into the grooves of the nose and the mouth, like this. All around the edges. Just do that. And then as soon as you've done it, very quickly, wipe away with your damp cloth, right? So that all is left is the deep grooves. There you go. Now you can see that you begin to get this effect of outlining all the details of the sculpture with the patina. And if you want to go over it more than once, that's fine. Just make sure that you don't leave a lot of it exposed to the raised areas. Always make sure that you wipe off the parts that are on the raised areas. So that's your method. You have to be quick because the paint will dry quickly unless you wipe away the excess fast with your damp cloth. So that's what we will do. So let me do this for a while, and then I will show you the next stage. So all finished. Took me about an hour to do all of the details, all of the little grooves on the sculpture, but as you can see now it looks a little bit more like a bronze sculpture. You can see the patina is in all the grooves, but it's the strongest and thickest in the deepest grooves where it's hardest to get to, because that's what it would be like in a real sculpture outside, where the elements cannot reach into the deep grooves. But the more shallow grooves, the ones that are smaller, more exposed, there's going to be less patina in those. So you just follow those rules and you do the whole thing, making sure that you get all of the major outlines of the sculpture with your patina, and then you just let it dry. And there you go. That's how you do patina sculpture.